Welcome to Ms. Taylor's Class Notes, and today we're going to talk about parallel lines that are cut by a transversal. So, everything I'm about to tell you only works if we know that P and Q are parallel. Again, everything I'm about to say only works if the two lines that cross our transversal are parallel. If they are not parallel, we do not know these things. So, we said in our last set of notes that corresponding angles are on the same side and in the same position. Now, if our lines are parallel, we know that corresponding angles are congruent. So we know that 1 is congruent to 5, 2 is congruent to 6, 3 is congruent to 7, and 4 is congruent to 8. So if we have alternate interior angles, we know that they are on the same, or they are on opposite sides, and they are inside the transversals. Oh, let's spell that word anywhere close. Inside the transversal. Alternate interior are also congruent angles. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 4. So again, those are congruent and those are congruent. So our alternate exterior angles, we said that they are, again, opposite, and they are outside the two lines that cross. And these are also going to be congruent, and they're only congruent if we know that the two lines are parallel. So 1 and 8 are going to be congruent, and 7 and 2 are going to be congruent. So the one that chooses to be a little bit different is our consecutive interior. These are same side, and they are inside. So consecutive interior are going to be equal to 180 because they are supplementary. So 3 plus 5 equals 180 degrees. 4 plus 6 equals 180 degrees. So those are the relationships we're going to work with. We got to remember that consecutive, alternate interior, alternate exterior are congruent, and consecutive interior are supplementary. So now we're going to use those angle relationships and this picture here to find every angle measure. So again, I have to know that the two lines that cross my transversal are parallel. If they are not parallel, none of this information works. So I know that angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles. And if they're corresponding angles, I know that they are congruent. So I know that angle 5 is 120 degrees. I know that angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles, which are congruent. So I know they're going to be 120 degrees. I know that angle 1 and angle 4 are vertical angles, and because they're vertical angles, they're going to be congruent, and it's going to be 120 degrees. And so I know that all 4 of those angles are going to be 120 degrees. So the next place I go is I know that angle 1 and angle 3 are a linear pair, and because they are a linear pair, they're going to equal 180 because they're supplementary. So 180 minus 120 is going to be 60 degrees. So the measure of angle 3 is 60 degrees. So I know 3 and 7 are corresponding angles, and because they're corresponding, I know that they're going to be congruent, and so I know it's going to be 60 degrees. I know that 7 is an alternate interior angle with 2, and because it's alternate interior, they're going to be congruent, and so 2 is also going to be 60 degrees. And then finally, I know that 2 and 6 are corresponding, and so they are going to be congruent, and so 6 is going to be 60 degrees. So now we're going to have to find the measure of angle 1 and 2 and use the theorems that we just learned to figure out angle measures. So again, the first thing we have to check is, are our lines parallel? And if our lines are parallel, we can use the theorems that we just learned. And we've just checked all of the lines, and they are all parallel. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this using only the theorems, the corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, and consecutive interior. I am not going to use linear pair, and I am not going to use vertical. You can always use those in the future, but I want to go through our theorems and make sure we understand our theorems. So Angle 2 and angle 110 are on the same side and they're both below the line. So they're going to be corresponding, O-C-O-R-E-S-B-O-N-D, corresponding angles. And so we're going to use our corresponding angles theorem, which means they are congruent. So that means the measure of angle 2 is 110 degrees. I know that 110 and angle 1 are alternate interior angles, which are congruent, which means the measure of angle 1, ooh, that was supposed to be a 110, is 110 degrees. All right, so now we're looking at 63 and 1. They are on the same side. They are both below the line, so they are corresponding, which means they are congruent, and angle 1 is going to equal 63 degrees. I know that 63 and 2 are on the same side, and they're both interior, so they're going to be consecutive, interior, which means they are going to equal 180 degrees. So I need to do 180 minus 63, which gets me 107. So angle 2 equal, the measure of angle 2 is 117 degrees. Let me add that measure right there too. All right, we know that 95 and angle 2 are on the same side of the transversal, and they're both below the line, so that's going to be corresponding. So that means they're congruent, so that means the measure of angle 2 equals 95 degrees. I know that 2 and 1 are alternate exterior because they're on opposite sides and both outside. I'm going to abbreviate this one. Alternate exterior, I know those are congruent, so I know that the measure of angle 1 is also 95 degrees. And what I want you to do right now, just to save some time and not make this video 30 minutes long, is I want you to do these 3 by yourself, and I want you to check with the completed notes.